I know that Granddaddy was born in Texas. I don't know when, but he ran away when he was either 16 or 17, and he joined the Navy.
This is Granddaddy Utley.
This is Granddaddy Utley. And so this was before he even met Grandma. I know Mother told me one time, she said, have you noticed that he wears long sleeve shirts all the time, no matter how hot it is? And he'll turn the cuff up about this far and he wears his watch there. She said that's because he has tattoos all over his body.
Oh, interesting.
He never puts on a bathing suit. And she said he showed me one time, and she said it was disgusting. But it's kind of like people are doing again.
Yeah, these days.
But I think when you get into the Navy, it's sort of, back in those days, that was an initiation of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So, one time they were docked in San Francisco, and Granddaddy was out on deck, kind of leaning over, having a smoke, and he noticed all these fish coming up in the water, and there were so many of them, they were just jumping to have room. And that was when San Francisco had that huge earthquake.
Oh, really?
And they were called to police the area. He said it was terrible. I'm paraphrasing from Mother. He said there were dead bodies on the street, and you'd see a ring finger cut, and they stole the ring. And it's because of the gas lighting, there were fires. He said it was just terrible. But everyone from the ship came out and they tried to get some kind of order and help with those who couldn't move, who were sick, and get into the places that had collapsed and save people. And he said it was really, really terrible. So that's it. But I thought that's an interesting story of his life.
I think that was the one where San Francisco almost burned down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 1906. Is that was a major one? Does that sound about right?
Let's see, 1906. Mother was born in 1915, so they're probably so. Yeah. But there was one where someone's cow kicked something in the barn.
And that was in Chicago, wasn't it?
Was that Chicago?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was fire involved. I know that.
The 1906. Yeah, I think the city just about burnt to the ground.
I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of it was wood.
Yeah, and like you said, gas for life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would have made sense. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, over 80% of the city was destroyed.
Yeah.
So
he was there.
He was there, and he said he couldn't figure out what was going on with the fish, and then he heard people screaming, and realized that something was going on, and finally, I guess they all figured out what it was.
Yeah.
And luckily they were there because they could get some kind of help and take those who were looting and arrest them. Yeah. So that's it.
What was Granddaddy Stevens' background? Like, where did he come through? Do Do you know much about that?
I don't know, I don't remember where he was born. But I know his father was like he was, rich, and then he'd lose it and then he'd get rich again. And he owned a hotel in Oklahoma City, the father. And I think he made a lot of money on it. But I think Granddaddy helped with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I know that Amanda was born, I think, someplace up like Missouri, or that part of the country. Very devout Catholic family. And she had 7 brothers and sisters. And at least 4 of them, I think maybe 5, worked for the Dolores.
Oh, wow.
One was in the bake shop, and then Bob Ogle was the manager of the restaurant, and John, I think, did the barbecuing outside, the barbecued ribs and like that, and there were a couple more. And I don't know if you remember, there was an oil well on the property behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And Granddaddy gave that to Dolores, and she got money from it for decades.
Wow.
But it slowly, it was less and less.
Yeah.
What else? They owned a house there, a beautiful house. The restaurant was within walking distance of the Capitol. So they got a lot of business people there. It really made a lot of money. Before that, though, well, there are 2 things. I think you've heard this story. The Granddaddy and his sister, when they were young, before, I don't know if they graduated from high school or not, they ran away from home, and they got a job traveling around the country, selling the syrup that would make you healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And Granddaddy would be the one that would stand up. They might have even been in a wagon and say, "Come on, learn about this. It'll make you healthy," and all that. And then I guess they had some kind of performers or something. His sister played the piano, and so that's where the music came from. And they went out west. They went all over.
This is just the 2 of them.
Just the 2 of them.
Ralph and what was her name?
I don't remember her name, and we only met her one time, and that's when Mother and Daddy and Marge and I were going all the way out west, and we stopped to see her. She was maybe it was Missouri, but that same area.
Mm-hmm.
And she had lost her leg. She had diabetes, and she had lost her leg, and she was in the hospital. And it was obvious she was very uncomfortable, but she tried to put up a good show for us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only time I ever saw her.
This is when you moved out west?
No.
On the way
we
to-
were in California at the time.
Oh.
And we drove out to where she was.
Oh.
I think Granddaddy wanted us to see her because
Okay.
she was so bad. And then before starting the restaurant, Grandma and Granddaddy went traveling all over, and they came down to Florida. And at that time down here, they had little stands of, and they specialized in a different kind of food, hamburger or ham sandwiches, or different people. And they came across this one place that they had hamburgers, and they had this sauce on the hamburger that the woman had come up with. And uh, they called it the comeback sauce. So Grandma, being Grandma, asked for the recipe, and the lady gave it to her.
Uh-huh.
And that's the Dolores sauce
Mm-hmm.
that they serve there and in California and all over. And I guess they lived in, they didn't have many motels or stuff. I think the places they stayed were just really basic for an overnight stay or
Mhm.
however. But they drove all around
Wow.
and then went back and settled in Oklahoma City.
So the recipes were all Amanda's recipes? Or,
Mm-hmm. But that one,
well, I mean,
yeah.
yes.
But the rest of them, she made, or she would go someplace and have something, and just sort of assess what the taste was and see if she could duplicate it.
But famously, when she was asked for her recipe, she'd always leave something out, correct?
Well, yeah. Mother said that if someone asked her for a recipe, first of all, she said, "No, I don't share my recipes." And then if it was a good friend or someone she knew, Mother said she'd give them the recipe, but she wouldn't put all the ingredients in. No, that's why we were sworn, don't give out a Dolores recipe
Right.
to anyone. And we didn't. But all the pies, I guess she came up with how to do them. And so she worked most of the time at the bake shop. She sort of managed the bake shop. And Donnie, that one woman who she really liked, and I think Donnie liked her too. Of course, she was black. And Grandma brought her out to 564 to the house if there was going to be a party that she could help.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she'd clean, and I suspect she was paid pretty well. And then the only other one I remembered was a black man, and he worked as a janitor. He had never gone to high school, and he had the bluest eyes you've ever seen. He was just a beautiful man and sweet, and they would invite him out to the house every Christmas morning, and he'd have eggnog. And so Granddaddy said, well, would you like to get a high school degree? And he says, oh, yes, sir. And so Granddaddy paid for him to go to I guess it's some place where you could get your degree,
Yeah.
even though, you didn't have to go to school with the
Mhm.
class, but
Mhm.
you could get your degree.
Mm-hmm.
He was so proud when he brought that certificate in and showed Granddaddy.
That's awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But they stayed. And you know how they ended up with gay car hops?
Yeah. No, I knew they had them. I didn't know how they.
Well, Granddaddy said when they opened the one at Wilshire, we're not going to be like the rest of them in California, where they have women on roller skates with real tight clothing and low necks. So he said, we're going to have men. So he
Did he give you
hired-
rationale for that? Like, was it just?
No, well, I think he didn't like the idea of the roller skates,
Uh-huh.
for one thing. And he didn't want people to feel like it was a sexy type thing.
Exploiting the women.
Yeah. So they hired a man and they hired another man. And they got a crew. Well, it turns out that almost all of them that he hired were gay, and that's the kind of job that they liked. And so it got to the point where if he hired a straight man, he'd work for a week and then he'd quit.
Yeah.
So that's how that happened. But they were good.
Yeah.
They were polite with the people, and they were fun to be around. But I remember one time one of them came to me and said, Ann, do you have any hairspray with you? I just ran out and said, oh, I don't use hairspray, I'm sorry. And then Halloween was their favorite holiday because they could dress up however they wanted to.
Yeah.
And they'd come in with pictures and they'd say, okay, guess who that one is? Because they were dressed like women. I couldn't tell on any of them. And they said, oh, come on, you can get this one. No, I can't see it. And then they all look so proud. It was quite a life.
It's progressive thinking for Ralph Stevens.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have to say, he did the books, but I think he had hired someone to help because it's a business. He stayed in the office. He didn't work anywhere near as hard as Grandma did. I mean, she was there, she'd come home at night and they'd have a party planned, a dinner party, and she'd go up and she'd soak in the tub. And she was always late coming down. Granddaddy would go in and he would set up the bar and have a few drinks and entertain the people as they came. And they ended up usually not eating till 8 o'clock or so. But they got along really well. They really loved each other. Well, Grandma said when she was in labor with Vince, I'm just trying to see the clock.
Yeah, 5 minutes or so.
Okay. She said he was coming really fast, and the doctor wasn't going to be able to get there very soon. Of course, she was at home, and she said her hips on the sides were black and blue because the doctor told her, rub your hips up so that you can prevent the baby from coming until I get there. I thought, I never understood that. It seems to me it'd be better to just let the baby come. But anyway, he finally came. Huh?
They were a great couple, though.
They
They're
were.
the only ones that, when we got married, and Bob and Lucille wouldn't have talked to us, to talk to you at least, but Ralph and Amanda took us out a couple times
To the club.
To the club.
The club,
Yeah.
the Beverly Hills Club. I'm sure you were there. Yeah.
But that's something we couldn't afford really in years, but it was wonderful. They were they came to our house.
Yeah,
To our
they
place
came
one
over.
day. It was really tiny place.
And
He said, no, that's where the kitchen should be. Guess what? Well, it looks fine. But and you go through the whole thing about this should be there and this should be here. We're great. We're really great.
yeah, and he said, oh, this looks like a place that we lived for a while, way back. So, yeah, they
Good-
never
good
held it
guy.
against us.
Good family. Good mom and dad, your grandma and dad.
Thank you for sharing the story.
You're welcome.